Welcome everybody to the webinar Good Food for All, a conversation with youth leaders. I am the director of this SDG2 Advocacy Hub, and I look after the hub which looks after advocacy around food, agriculture and nutrition tied to private sector, UN and civil society. And so we bring together different conversations, different tools on how we can drive forward some of these areas. And so it's really critical to have these conversations around what we can do around good food for all. And it's good food for all is a new way, a new narrative that we are using to talk a little bit about our vision for the food system, our vision to ensure that there's equity for everyone, and that not only we all get to enjoy food, also the people that are preparing it and the way that it's produced is good for people and for planet. And so this is all part of a broader conversation that we're hoping people from all different walks of life will join. And so it's really critical at this time to really bring in new voices. In 2021, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is going to convene this UN Food System Summit, and we're going to hear a little bit more around that shortly. And the idea is that is going to raise awareness and hopefully land global commitments and actions that transform food systems to not only resolve hunger, but also to reduce diet-related illness and heal the planet. So a little bit later, my colleague Barbara is going to be joining. She's been a youth delegate in the past, and so we thought it would be absolutely awesome to have her to join and help co-facilitate this conversation today. And she'll join a little bit later and introduce herself a little bit more. But we're greatly honored to have on this call 4 amazing youth leaders from 4 different parts of the world, from Nepal, the US and Brazil, Kenya and Rwanda, and also as well to have Dr. Agnes Kilabata, the Special Envoy for the UN Food System Summit, and Dr. Kanayo, Nwanze, CGIAR Special Representative for the UN Food System Summit, who are both very passionate about the role of youth. They're very young at heart and body, and very keen to drive real progress around the Food System Summit. So instead of myself, I'm going to invite all our panelists to turn their videos on. Instead of me chewing up too much time for this conversation by introducing everyone, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you each do a short introduction to yourself. So I want you to tell us a little bit about just who you are and where you're based, what you do, so what kind of title, organizations are you representing? And then I also really would love, and we do this often at the SDG2 Hub, is food is something so connected to who we are. It's so personal. And so what I would really love to do is ask you to tell us one of your earliest memories of food. No matter where you are in the planet, you all have foods that you enjoy, that bring back memories, that connect us to all kinds of different things. And so it's always really good when we meet people to understand what they enjoy and what they remember around food. So why don't we kick off? I'm going to ask Dr. Agnes Kilabata to start off by a quick introduction and share a short memory. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for having me. Is my voice right? Good, very good. So listen, my name is Agnes Kilabata. Like you said earlier, I'm the Special Envoy for the UN Food System Summit that will take place next year in 2021. I've been in this role since January of this year. I'll come back to that at some stage, but let me go to the point you asked around what food means to us. And I want to divert a little bit, not about what we enjoy about food, but what food means to us. I remember I've been telling people that food means different things to different people. Now, to me, in the culture that I come from, the most important thing around food is a cow, right? So we basically, a cow is a big thing when it comes to food. It's a source of milk. It's a source of ghee, which is oil. Basically, it's your all-in-one, and it's a source of wealth. more than everything, but it's also a source. It's the one that you give away to be able to get a wife. So it's really everything for us. Now, anything that threatens its life basically is something you can't deal with. Now, when we were young, and I've told you before, I grew up in a refugee camp. When we were young, UNHCR brought us this great fish, beautiful fish, salmon it must have been, because it was red, golden and orange and all that. And my dad, in my culture, people believe that fish and cows don't go together. So he asked my brothers to dig a deep hole, and they threw all the salmon in there. And we buried it because we could not eat it. So, so again, like I said, food means different things to different people. For him, this food that is one of the most important pieces of food in the world, in that particular sense of the culture, was actually a threat. They saw it as a threat to their main source of food. So I just want to say that because we recognize that we are extremely different, we are all different, and it brings different things. Food brings out different things in each of us.
Absolutely, I love that, Agnes. The role that food connects to so many other parts of life, and rites of passage around marriage and all kinds of things. Food is so central to everything about our lives, and sometimes we do it a disservice when we think about it as just what we put in our mouth, but it's so much more.
Yeah.
It's relationships and culture and all these things. Thank you so much. I'm excited to see the rest of this conversation today. So let's ask Dr. Kanayo. Do you want to do your introduction, please?
Well, I guess very briefly, Kanayo Felix Nwanze. I'm the CGIAR Special Representative to the Food Systems Summit. This position was appointed in April, at the time serving and still serving as a member of the System Management Board of the CGIAR. In this capacity, I will be representing the CGIAR, which is the world's largest public agriculture research network. Well, my background is in agriculture, and of course, for me, agriculture means food. Now, my career has taken me practically all over the world, and my experience about food is such that for every particular region of the world where I have lived and worked, there is a particularity about the food, and I'm such almost like a voracious food lover, and I retain memories of the foods that I was exposed to in my early career in the days of Congo, Zaire, way back in the 70s, in the Sahel, where I lived, and I learned how to, I got the taste of couscous, different kinds of couscous. Then, of course, 10 years in India, where I was exposed to a range of food items. And then, of course, lastly, in Europe. So for me, food is actually a way of life. It is a culture, it's a tradition, and it means a lot of things, just like Agnes said. But I think I've been very fortunate to have been exposed to what food means, and in essence, food systems, from preparing the food, from growing the food item to when it is consumed or stored or sold. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. And I mean, all these experiences that we have around food, I think really highlight the unique nature. And on this conversation today, even though we've got such a great panel, we can't have everyone sharing, but we have put some polls up that will be coming up through the conversation to allow the different people that are dialing in to be able to also participate and share. And so if you see them pop up, please add your thoughts. We want to bring you in, and later on, start thinking about what questions you want to ask as you start to get to know these panelists. We really want this to be as interactive as possible. So I'm going to now move over to Pramisha. Did you want to do a quick introduction and share your memory?
Sure, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Hello, everyone. I am Pramisha Thapaliya from Nepal, and I am Youth Ambassador of Real Food Systems. Also, I work as co-leader of Yongo Agriculture Working Group, and Yongo is official children and youth constituency to the UNFCCC. Similarly, I also work as SDG2 interim facilitator for United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth, which is General Assembly mandated self-organized children and youth space to give inputs to the policy processes of United Nations. And academically, I have bachelor's degree in agriculture science, and I'm so excited to be part of this diverse panel with amazing speakers and experts. And talking about my experience with food, unlike most of the city's kids today who think that rice comes from packet and milk comes from can, I have a different experience as I was raised in urban suburb, and I used to visit my grandparents frequently who used to do smallholder farming in villages. So from my earlier age, I knew about the source of food, and I was well acquainted with agriculture production practices. So food is culture to me, and food is relationship to me. So I recall all the past activities and all my times with grandparents when I recall the food, and when I see the oranges, I used to recall my past experiences in winter when I used to harvest oranges in the orchard of my grandparents, and that's all experience of food with me. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Pramisha, and it's great to hear how you're connecting your experiences back to moments in time and different places that you've lived, because our food experience shifts according to that. So let's go across to Florence. Did you want to introduce yourself now?
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Yes.
Florence. Youth leader for nutrition from Rwanda. I'm also a medical doctor from Rwanda. But for me, nutrition, it means health. I don't know whether it's because I'm in medical background, but I used to feel like human nutrition, like everyone knows what to eat, and it's not something we needed to care about. Till recent, where I became a champion for nutrition and I start to go deeper into nutritional concepts. That's where I come to realize, really, like me also, I don't really know like a health diet. I know it, and I always teach the people like how to take a health diet, but I don't consider it like in mind like every day when I'm going to eat. That's where I started to engage my fellow young people in the project that I'm doing back home in Youth Forward Nutrition, where I'm trying to engage other young people to consider what they eat, because it's going to affect the entire health. If they eat healthy, they are going to be healthy and productive. But if they are going to eat unhealthy, that's where they are going to have different burden of diseases. So I'm really excited to be in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Florence. It's great to hear about the elements of health, because food is something that makes us is so connected to our health, and we've seen this with the COVID situation that we're in. There's lots of connections there, and so it's great to have you live from your work as a medical doctor in Rwanda. So I love that. Okay, let's go across. Brian, did you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Thank you a lot, Paul. And it's a pleasure to be in the panel. My name is Brian Bosire. I'm based in Kenya. My background is in electronics engineering, but then I know farmers produce foods and how they can apply technology. So I'm the co-founder of a company called UjuziKilimo, which in Swahili means knowledge or smart farming. And what we do is we utilize data to provide actionable insights to farmers so that they know how to apply resources like fertilizers and water, and most importantly, how to sustainably continue producing food. I also serve as a UN Young Leader for Sustainable Development Goals, and I'm advocating for SDG2. And about my food story, I think for me, when I look at food, I see community. Because in my home place where I come from in Kenya, in Western Kenya, one of the single things that always brings community together is food. And the one thing that I know will never make somebody smile is good food. So I'm really passionate about food, and I think this is a good panel to discuss about the future of food. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. And I definitely think, you know, we just did this poll, and the number one way that people enjoy most about food was it's bringing the sharing of food and the meal with family and friends. And so I think, Brian, it's very true. It's the way that we come together. And I think food is that connector. And at a time when we're many of us are in isolation, we're apart on lots of different issues, coming together is really important. And it's great to see that food can do that. So, and now we're going to move across. Lana, I'd love to hear your experiences and an introduction.
Hello, I definitely agree that community and sharing of food is one of the most really amazing ways to experience food. For a quick introduction, I'm originally from Brazil and I'm currently in the United States. I'm a bachelor student at Johns Hopkins University, and I lead on food and systems and agriculture topics for 0 Hour, which is an international youth-led climate justice organization. I'm also the co-founder of Cultivate America, which is a youth organization on food system solutions to the climate crisis. Personally, my relationship with food and the food that I eat has definitely changed, even in my short lifetime, just moving to eat foods that are healthier, more climate friendly, more nutritious, as I've learned more, which is definitely not something that I knew from a young age. And I've just taken the initiatives to learn more about. And even then, one of my most prominent experiences still goes back to my extended family and in southern Brazil, and the way that they are really in touch with their food in a way that in the other communities that I've lived in since then, it's simply not the same kind of connection to where your food comes from. I think that's really a difference that's changed in a lot of societies, that kind of understanding where your food comes from and really being in touch with, I remember they'd make freshly baked bread and very much in touch with all the ingredients and where they came from. And I think that's really beautiful. And then sharing that as a family, of course, it's very meaningful. So thank you, and really excited to be here.
As you were talking, I could already smell bread baking, and I know I've been into southern Brazil and seen the experience around food, and it is very unique. So it's great to have you here, Lana. So we're going to have a bit more of a broader discussion, but before we do, I'm going to invite Dr. Agnes Kilabata to come back on and just share a little bit around the UN Food Systems Summit. What's this UN Food Systems Summit about? What's it going to entail? And how can we get engaged in that? So Agnes, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you, Paul. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to this group of young people and our audience about the UN Food System Summit. So the UN Food System Summit was launched last year at the World Food Day by the Secretary General of the UN, really for one main reason. It had come through during the meetings of the General Assembly that we were generally off track. I mean, everybody knew that we were off track, but they did agree that given that we were off track on delivering SDGs, there was an opportunity for us to look at what we could do differently in the next decade. We have 1 decade to go to the SDGs. So the opportunity was, let's launch the decade of action and let's look at different things within the decade of action that we could do that will help us get back on track on delivering on the SDGs. Now, specifically from a food systems perspective, a number of things were already going wrong. If you look at Zero Hunger or SDG2, for which you also are responsible for, Paul, the number of hungry in some of the world's poorer areas are increasing. The number of hungry people are increasing. So that is definitely off track. When we look at how we talk about nutrition, the type of food we eat and how we eat it is considered to be the #1 cause of death, right? Right now, food-related consumption and obesity and other related challenges from food are causing a lot of death. Then there's another challenge. The amount of food we waste and how we waste food is also becoming extremely challenging. We waste an equivalent of $1 trillion of food every year, which is huge amounts of food. But think about then our contribution to emissions. We now know that the way we produce food is contributing about 30%, is one of the biggest contributors to emissions. And yet we know that we are working in a climate change environment and we just can't afford it. We can't, whether it is here in Africa, whether it is anywhere in the world, farmers are just having such a difficult time working in a climate environment in terms of producing food. But also there are other issues that we must care about. There's the loss of biodiversity that is associated with our food production. There's the whole COVID crisis that is associated with how we look at and think about food. But there are also a number of other things that have come to light, especially because of COVID. All the vulnerabilities and that we see and lack of resilience now and fragility of our food system that just makes it so necessary for us to start thinking about how to strengthen our food system. So I've described lots of challenges with regards to the food system, but I want to underscore that within the food systems also lies the solution to these problems. And I hope that during this meeting, we'll be talking about what some of those solutions to a food system, to our food systems are and how young people can engage. My hope is that with engaging young people like you, with engaging the global community, we can actually get to a point where we are setting huge ambition for ourselves, because we know we have to set a huge ambition, but also we really, that ambition comes with very concrete and strong action that we can deliver in the next 10 years to turn the clock around on all those areas that I said that are very critical to our food systems. So really, this is a challenge that we have together. This is something that we need to get back on track. And this is something that I hope that young people can take on seriously. I was really encouraged when I participated in the Youth Climate Summit meeting. I just felt like this is the place we need to be, not just because these are young people and they're exciting to be around, but because they represent a huge part of our population going forward, and they're tomorrow's future, and they understand, and they need to understand what is at stake here. So I'm really excited to be part of this conversation, and my hope is that we can get a youth movement within the Food Systems Summit that really brings home the value of young people, but also the value of our food systems and the custodians that we must be for our food systems to make sure that we really live to your expectation, Paul, of good food for all.
Thank you, Agnes.
Back to you, Paul.
Yeah. Thank you, Agnes. No, I really appreciate it. And this is a big challenge, and we appreciate you making time for this conversation with such a big role, with such huge ambition. But we also want you to know that we're all in this with you and all want to participate. And it's great to see so many people on this conversation as well. I'm just looking through the chat. There's people from Kenya, Simon from Kenya. There's seeing people from India, from Oslo, from Vietnam, from Canada, from the Philippines, from Ireland, from Italy, from the UK, from there's others here in all different parts, Canada, Sweden, so many, it's great, Denmark. So really keen, please keep introducing yourself, Costa Rica, so many different parts of the world. And the reality is these food systems are different everywhere, but there are things we can do together. And so this is part of the conversation. So I'm going to now ask Dr. Kanayo Nwanze to just come on and tell us a little bit more about the CGIAR and your work as a special representative. Why is the CGIAR important in this conversation? And can you just share a little bit around your experience on this before we move into the next part of the panel?
Well, thank you very much, Paul. Let me quickly add that I was excited when Agnes was appointed as the special envoy for the UN Food System Summit, and more excited when I was then appointed as the special representative of the CGIAR to the System Summit, Food System Summit. Agnes and I go back many years, and I'm happy that I can also contribute in this regard. From the CGIAR's point of view, the summit itself next year, we need to be sure that the best of science is also implicated in the discussions that we're going to have and the outcomes that we expect to have. Good science that informs not only policy at the highest level, but also best techniques and technologies. Now, when we talk about research, here we're looking at agricultural research for development, and this is also driven by science because it contributes to sustainable systems, our climate, our planet, also preventing us, helping us to end poverty, and there's got to be science behind all of this. And as I said earlier, the CGIAR is the world's largest public agricultural research network, and it works with partners all globally, and it co-produces hundreds of innovations. Now, innovations are key to actually bringing about changes in our food systems. Not just in terms of addressing climate change and water requirements and delivering high yield rice and so on, but it also includes improved production systems, management practices, approaches that are equitable, more inclusive, particularly of youth. And sometimes innovations are basically doing things differently. Could just simply be doing things differently from traditional approaches. And this is where youth in particular, I'm really happy to see that Brian is part of this panel. The role of technology, the role of digital technology, and what youth voices, how important youth voices are in shaping our future. Because in essence, you are the agribusiness owners of tomorrow. You are the farmers and the producers, and you're going to be the policymakers. So the decisions we take today, you will have to live with them. And it's important that you are engaged, and this is going to be one of my strong points here. You've got to be engaged yourselves to lead the process. And as Agnes just mentioned, that we do hope that we'll have a strong youth movement and the run-up as we prepare for the summit next year. This is very important. It's got to be a movement that has the energy that you all bring into this dialogue, into this conversation. I do hope that you understand how passionate I am about this. And this is basically why I established FIRE Day, the Facility for Youth Development in Nigeria, thanks to the Africa Food Prize that I obtained in 2016, to basically see how we can help rural youth. Because oftentimes we talk about youth, we forget that the majority of our youth are rural. And they don't have access to financial services, to mentoring and the rest of them. And this little facility is basically trying to provide some kind of mini grants to give them that push that they need, because everyone is an innovator. It's a question of the opportunities that present themselves. I'll stop here for now and wait for when we can have some more interactive session to share some more points with you.
Thank you so much. And I really enjoyed hearing your passion that was there and your belief in the power of youth. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to hand over to the co-facilitator for this event, Barbara, who works with me at the SDG2 Advocacy Hub Secretariat in London. And as we were talking and coming up with the idea around this, I said that it would be great to have Barbara, as a previous youth ambassador and a young person herself, actually help facilitate this dialogue, because it's very important that we're continuing to bring in new leaders into this conversation on this Food System Summit. And so I'm going to hand over, Barbara. Do you want to introduce yourself briefly? And then I think you're going to bring this conversation into a bit of dialogue.
Sure, yeah. Hi, Paul, and thank you. It's a great pleasure to support and help facilitate this conversation. So as Paul just said, my name is Barbara. I'm originally from Switzerland, and I am now working as the Communications Officer at the SDG2 Advocacy Hub Secretariat here in London. So the participation of youth is particularly close to my heart, not only as Paul just mentioned, because I'm a young person myself, but because I've been a youth delegate in the past. In 2015, I represented Swiss youth at the UN General Assembly, and I worked very, very closely with young people throughout 2 years in my country. And, you know, in my experience, as Dr. Kalibata and Dr. Nwanze just shared with us, young people just bring so many amazing skills to the table. They are the future generations, and you know, they're at the heart of our communities, of families, of every culture. So in light of all this, and especially because tomorrow is International Youth Day 2020, with the theme Youth Engagement for Global Action, it is a really great pleasure for me to facilitate this panel and to welcome now our panelists. So as they've introduced themselves already, we have Florence Sibomana from Rwanda, Pramisha Thapaliya from Nepal, Lana Weidgenant from Brazil and the US, and Bosire from Kenya. So if you haven't already, I'd invite you to unmute yourself, turn your videos on. And in conversation with these 4 amazing young leaders will be Dr. Agnes Kilabata, Special Envoy for the UN Food Systems Summit, and Dr. Kanayo Nwanze, CGIAR Special Representative for the UNFSS. Before we start off, maybe just a few words on how I'd really love this dialogue to proceed. So I see myself a bit more as a referee rather than a traditional moderator. And so I really strongly encourage all of our panelists to have a dynamic conversation, ask the toughest questions of each other that you can think of, and try to make this as action-oriented and practical as possible. So share examples, share practical examples from your experience and your work. I also encourage, I think I've already seen multiple people sharing ideas and questions, but I encourage all attendees to go ahead and ask your questions. This is a great opportunity to address our experts and youth leaders. So feel free to either use the chat function, or there's also the Q&A function on Zoom where you can pose your questions. Ideally mentioning your name and affiliation if possible, and then I can hopefully feed in as many questions from the audience as possible throughout the panel discussion. So to set the stage, I'd love for our 4 youth leaders now to share with us your 3 main priorities for a transformation of our food systems. So no need to introduce yourselves again, just lead with your points and then we can dive right into the conversation. Who would like to go first?
I can.
Great.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara. Dr. Agnes and Dr. Kanayo has already highlighted many important points related to a role of youths for food system transformation, including empowering rural youths and supporting them. I'd like to highlight my top 3 priorities for food systems transformation. My first priority is transformation of corporate-owned food systems to farmers-owned food systems, because largely in many cases, our current food system is corporate owned. So I want smallholder farmers, especially in developing and underdeveloped countries, to be in the forefront of the food systems and transition money-oriented food system to people and planet-oriented food systems. Similarly, my second priority is prioritizing local and diversified food systems. COVID-19 has already exposed the vulnerabilities of our current food systems. So if we want to ensure the food security and solve the problems of food insecurity while tackling the climate crisis, we need to diversify our food systems and we need to prioritize local production systems. Similarly, my top 3 or third priority is that promoting climate-friendly production practices and helping smallholder farmers adopt local technologies with the blend of innovation and traditional and indigenous knowledge. And it could range from restoring soil health, also discouraging use of many chemicals in the soil, similarly shortening transportation routes to reducing food waste. We can also support the member state to pass the policies regarding food waste and banning supermarkets to throw the unsold foods, instead supporting them to provide the unsold food to charities. And yes, these are my top 3 priorities. Now I'm passing to my other fellow youth leaders.
Great point, Pramisha, with the ownership of food systems. I think that is a fantastic point. Go ahead, Brian, maybe you want to go next?
Sure, Barbara. So I think on my side, my top three priorities are really about uptake of technology within the food systems. And the first thing is about utilization of data, because I believe that we are in a point where digitization is the global trend. And any industry that doesn't really take up digitization means that it's going to lag behind. And I believe this is a huge opportunity for us to start thinking about digitizing our food system right from production to consumption. And I'm looking at the second priority being supporting the local small-scale farmers, because I really believe that if you look at the poverty index and also the most vulnerable to hunger, I think developing countries are the most prone. And when you look at the kind of food production system they have, it's highly dependent on small-scale farmers. So we have to think about how do we involve these small producers, and how do we ensure that the food that they produce is consumed both within the communities, and leverage on these technologies to ensure that food, we reduce the distribution and logistics issues that might come up due to the current system. So the third thing I'm looking at around is involvement of young people within the food system. So I'm in Kenya, and in Africa, the average age of a farmer is, for example, around 60 years old. So when you look at that kind of a food production system, we have to ask ourselves then, who's going to feed the future generation? And I believe we have to encourage more young people to come into the food production, and also across the food value chain at different levels. And overall, I think my whole points are all blended together by technology. Thank you.
Others, feel free to just jump in.
Okay. Yeah. I'm Florence. I'm a leader for nutrition from Rwanda. I'm also having top 3 priorities. The first one, I really want to see ongoing public and community mobilization, where we are teaching the population on considering what we eat and why do we need to eat, and what is the effect it's going to have to our body system. Where even one, apart from learning on variety diet, health diet, how are we moving into practical world? How are we implementing into health diet in our daily life? My second priority is about engagement of young people in agribusiness. Like in my community, most of the time we consider the food production or agriculture sector to be for those who are from poor families or those who are from rural areas, but it doesn't sound attractive to young people. But with this ongoing development and with technology, I think that in the future, we also need to have this agriculture as a serious priority, because if we are going to have a low production of food, that's where we are going to face different issues that have been discussing on what food means to all of us. So that's why my second priority is more with engaging young people in agribusiness, not only living agriculture activities for those who are poor, those who don't have anything else to do. My third priority is more with giving the capacity and knowledge to those smallholder local farmers, where they know how to use and improve the technologies in agriculture, so that they can produce a health crop, and so that they can have a good market. So it's more with leveraging those improved techniques to those smallholders farmers, especially from rural areas. Thank you.
Thanks, Florence.
I'll go last then. Hello, everyone. My top 3 priorities are, especially in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and in light of COVID-19 as well, and the infectious diseases that arise from industrialized animal farming conditions, making sure to incentivize governments to and government support and subsidies that are going to factory farms, industrial animal agriculture, which including industrial fish farming, which are really being large contributors to greenhouse gases and to pollution of air and land and water, and of course impactful to the workers and communities as well. Another priority of mine is supporting communities to ensure that healthy, climate-friendly foods such as fruits, vegetables, nuts, and grains are made more affordable to grow and to purchase through subsidy shifts to support these items instead, and also supporting farmers to transition from chemical industrial agriculture to more sustainable organic farming, focusing on healing the soil and sequestering carbon. Another priority of mine is promoting healthy and climate-friendly consumption. I think there's a huge opportunity to encourage each country to reimagine their dietary recommendations for all their citizens and to consider sustainability in food, which hasn't really been done before, which means promoting reductions in food waste and also acknowledging that plant-forward eating is positive for individual health and for the planet. And I think that the 2021 UN Food Systems Summit could also really lead here by showcasing a basic outline of dietary recommendations for individual and planetary health for countries to follow and then customize, of course, to their culture and region.
That is fantastic. That is a lot of information. Dr. Kalibata and Dr. Nwanze, any immediate reactions or curiosity to hear more on one of those points?
Well, one thing, excuse me. One thing I hear from our panelists, our young panelists, which I would like to throw back to them, as I hear the words of opportunities, government should do this and so on. That's why I said at the beginning that I'm really hoping that this youth movement that seems to be emerging in relation to the Food Systems Summit for 2021 will actually generate a force, because I believe, you know, we hear, well, we talked about how youth do not have opportunities, the rural youth they have obstacles and so on and so forth, which is true. I mean, finance, you name it. But you know, one thing I believe that's going to bring about this change is you really got to grow your inspiration, and you really have to go out to organize yourselves and to think outside the box and nurture your dream to the highest level, but also start a little bit small. See, agriculture, we talk about food systems. I mean, it's very well defined. It's from the moment you either, you know, buy your little cow for your cow, milk the cow, or put the seed in the ground, all the way through consumption and post-consumption. You know, sustainable consumption, for example. How do we handle excess food? So there is a huge opportunity, a business opportunity. I mean, and agriculture is the largest employer. It makes money. It not only feeds people, it's the greatest money-making enterprise. It's the foundation for sustainable development of communities. So I would say, you know, you must not wait for opportunity to walk up to you. You must go for the opportunity yourselves. And this is very important. Opportunity is always waiting. But if you don't go for it, and that's why when I mentioned Brian and some of the things that you guys are doing, you know, it's basically putting yourselves to bringing about that change that you are capable of bringing about. Do not wait for somebody to bring about change. Change does not happen by itself. It is made to happen. And you are the ones that are going to bring about this change, because you are the ones that are going to face the future. So you have to be active participants and to make sure that the movement, this youth movement that is accompanying this Food Systems Summit is tangible, and you come with concrete ideas that can actually make a difference.
Brian, would you like to react?
Yeah, so I could come in as well here, if you don't mind. Yeah. So thank you so much, and I really wanted to appreciate the input that I'm hearing from all the young people on the call. I wanted to note there are a few areas definitely that people are going back to all the time, which is very exciting from a food systems perspective. The whole area of looking at climate issues, and given that climate is the #1 threat to our livelihoods today, so looking at seeing that young people are very much interested in what we need to be doing to fix those climate-related issues is very good. Another point that came out, I like the idea around the corporate to farmer-owned food systems. I must say that during this and within this whole food system summit, one of the things we will be looking to do is also how to engage private sector and come back with a number of things, not just on the corporate farming perspective, but also on the whole perspective around food and how food is processed, how food comes to our tables, and how consumers regard food. So there's a whole lot of behavior that the corporate industry has the ability to influence and can work with all of us to ensure that we land the food systems in a better place. So that's an area that would be interested in working with you all. I wanted to go back to the point that Dr. Kanayo is making around involving young people in agriculture, in food systems. And I was hoping for more a little bit there, and maybe we can discuss some of that a little bit. What does involving young people look like? Because if you ask me, I have my perspective, someone else will have their perspective, but what are young people looking for? What are your hopes? What does involving young people in food systems look like, so that even as we take on a youth movement, we really understand some of your expectations, and here we definitely understand many of the challenges you're talking about, your hopes and dreams. And we could also talk about the challenges, and I think Professor Dr. Kanayo has highlighted a number of them. One of the challenges that I don't hear coming out at all, and yet we meet all the time, for example, if you're looking to be a young person in farming, is the issue of land and access to land and policies around land and how those can work for young people. So the reason I'm bringing it up is because, again, we have a huge population of young people that is unemployed here on the African continent. 3 in every 10 are the only ones that are employed. Only 30% of people that graduate get employment. So the way around this problem is to think about how food systems can be part of the solution. It's true that people are always looking to be employed in other places, non-farm sector, including all the other areas. But you know what? They cannot take more than 50% of the people that come out of school. So there's a whole 50% that would have to be taken up where, and the agriculture sector, I mean, the food system sector is pretty elastic when it comes to that. So those opportunities and discussing what those opportunities look like is something I'm hoping to hear you bring out more. What do you care about? What do you want to see more of? Which areas would you engage in if you engaged in the food systems perspective? So for me, I want to hear more of, yeah, what's not what is broken, because I know we have so many things that are broken, but more of what type of things would you like to see more of, and what would you want to do as young people? Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Kanayo and Dr. Kalibata, for your inspiring remarks. And Dr. Kanayo already highlighted that young people should come in front and young people should lead the solutions, and that is very inspiring for all of us attendees and also young panelists. And as Dr. Kalibata asked that what are our hopes and what are the sectors that we want to see the change, we also highlighted our top priorities already, but the most importantly, in my opinion, we must transform the food system in a way that it is resilient in terms of climate crisis and also resilient in terms of coming disasters. So I have a question to Dr. Kalibata that how can young people be more effective in leading and supporting the food systems transformation, and how do you envision the role of young people in the lead up to UN Food System Summit and beyond? Thank you very much.
Moderator, do you want me to come in now?
Sure. I mean, maybe just to kind of, there's so many ideas spinning around. And I think on the one hand, you know, all of us, no matter which age, no matter which region in the world we are at, we care about different things, we work on different things. So that's one aspect. So we have climate activists, we have activists on nutrition, we have activists on agriculture. On the other hand, we have youth participation on informal processes and informal institutions and during momentum such as the UN Food System Summit. And we have youth participation on sort of the grassroots level, what Dr. Kalibata shared, you know, missing access to land, missing access to having a platform and a voice and on the local and national level. So maybe we can break that up a little bit and kind of address those points point to point. So I think, Pramisha, you just asked a couple of really great questions to Dr. Kalibata with respect to the UN Food System Summit. So how exactly in that one momentum, and in the preparation and lead up to that, how can youth leaders such as the four that are joined with us today get more involved?
Thank you. Thank you to both of you for that question. So there are a number of ways that young people can get involved in the Food System Summit, but I just wanted to underscore a few things that I would like us to think through. I mean, today, just as we speak, 60% of the global population is below 24. So that's a huge, huge platform, right? I mean, if you come to Africa, 77% of the population in Africa is below 35, 77%. So, I mean, young people are the future of this continent. So there are two things that the implication of that is twofold. One, it's what we do today. It's very important that we engage that level of population in what we do today, number one. Number two, how we plan for the future. It's very important that how we plan engages the population that is going to constitute the future. So those are the two things that are very important. So going back to what young people can do, then there's a voice, that level of people have a strong voice. And we want this voice to come together collectively as a voice for Food System Summit and to bring out many of the issues you're talking about. There are many areas of the Food System Summit that will be looking at different things. We have different tracks that are looking at, some tracks will be looking at nutrition, we'll be looking at how to reduce emissions from the agricultural sector, we'll be looking at how to improve livelihoods, we'll be looking at how to build resilience, many of the things you care about, how to create jobs as well. So the opportunity here is you actually have a chance to come in and define how the going forward looks like, and define how the decisions that get taken speak to the things you care about. And there are several ways to do that. We have decided, for example, that the vice chairs of each track, one of them is going to have to be a youth, right? Representing some youth network to ensure that there's a youth network in each track that actually does speak to the solutions that each track does come up with and the level of ambition that each track does come up with. If you don't like it, tell the group that you don't like where the track is going. If you like it, make sure that you put your foot down and those things get done. And that's going to happen across all the 5 different tracks of the summit. So that's one way of looking at things. The second way of looking at things is we have a food systems dialogue, and the food systems dialogue is going to be happening at country level. And it's recognizing that in each country, the food system is actually very local to that country, and the challenges and solutions are very local to that country. So what I would like to see is to see young people in each country in the movements with the way you organized. It would be good to see young people in each country be part of the conversations that are happening at country level. The third place, excuse me, the third place where young people could engage is we have an open championship network, where I was asking you that you actually become part of a championship by building a youth movement that champions for the right things and what needs to be done. So many of you, some of you have already been approached, but we will also be reaching out to many of you. What we would like to do is to build a network of champions, and we want to make sure that young people are part of that network of champions. There's a fourth option. The fourth option is we have an open dialogue system that is internet-based, where you can actually give your ideas. If you don't want to be part of any particular network or don't exist in any particular network, you can also be part of the dialogue that is happening on the open web-based system that we put in place that will allow you to provide your ideas, but also will give you an opportunity to say no to some of the things that you feel are not taking us in the right place. So those are 4 very concrete areas in which you can engage, young people can engage in the Food Systems Summit. And that's the reason in the first place I said we would like to see this as a young people's movement.
Maybe to jump in and bring the youth leaders back. So that is, I mean, that is fantastic to hear, so many ways that young people can get involved. Maybe to ask the youth leaders now, what do you, as Dr. Kalibata asked before, what would you expect and hope for? You know, having heard these kind of particular ways that youth can get involved, what would you hope for to how to participate and how to help change some of the things that we need to address going forward? Maybe Florence, you would like to jump in, or Brian?
Okay, Barbara, I want to jump in on that. Maybe for me, one of the things that hasn't come clear, maybe I can just add to the 4 points that Dr. Agnes has just highlighted, is the role of entrepreneurship. Because I really feel that as we develop these food systems, we have to look at what is the biggest problem facing young people. And I believe that one of the biggest challenges, especially in developing countries, is lack of economic opportunity. And unless there is a very clear economic opportunity or incentive within the food systems, I believe that young people are still going to be out there trying to seek that economic opportunity. And as an entrepreneur myself, I believe that I started by saying that I studied electronics engineering, but I ended up being in agriculture, developing systems for agriculture. Mm-hmm. I believe that we have to at that point so that any young person out there knows that actually we need to seek opportunities within the agriculture sector because of this and this. And a good example for myself is within the food system, within the food production system, we acknowledge that farmers lack knowledge on how to, for example, develop sustainable ways of producing food. And the opportunity there is, as an electronic engineer, then you have to develop some system that leverages on technology to do something. And by so doing, we've been able to create employment for more than 20 young people. And I believe that should be a very clear and concise point that also has to go into the Food System Summit so that we are very clear in articulating the economic opportunity for young people within the food systems.
Let me quickly jump in here, Brian, because I'm really happy to hear what you just said. You know, a lot of the research centers of the CGIAR really have programs that address youth. You just talked about your own particular case in digital technology. There is a youth data initiative, which is started by the CGIAR platform for big data in agriculture. Now, it helps young people develop their skills in digital agriculture, making use of new technologies and data. And this is very active, and actually help them to partner with others, both industry as well as. And one of the things from my own field experience, we think that farmers, small producers, do not have knowledge. They do have knowledge. They know what farming is. They know what agriculture is. I mean, they are trying to make profit. It's just that they're not competitive. And one of the greatest factors I found in my experience working both at the CGIAR and at IFAD is the ability for collective action. And that is when collective action is basically farmers associations, farmers groups. And I'm pretty sure you've seen that in your business. If you can help to organize them, they have a power to negotiate prices as well as to have access to market. The other thing I want to talk about is the International Institute of Agricultural Research of Tropical Agriculture in Nigeria, RITA. They started about maybe 8-9 years ago, what is called agripreneurs, youth agripreneurs. And these are basically initially university graduates who went to this institution, RITA, to do their year of service. And this program today is in 10 African countries, operating enterprises that you may have heard about. I think actually they have it also in Kenya. And they have been able to establish themselves as agribusinesses. And these are young people. So the opportunities, and I want to go back to what I said earlier, because I keep hearing that, you know, opportunities, young people don't have opportunity. Opportunities are waiting. It's not going to come to you. So you got to go get it and organize yourselves to make your voices heard. You know, I mean, what Agnes just told you is music. You have opportunities to participate, but please organize yourselves as youth groups, whether they're loose associations, so that your voices are heard as a group, and to be consistent in your messaging as well.
That's great points, Dr. Kanayo. Maybe let me just jump in, because I would love to bring in a question from the audience. I can hear that there's some audio problem.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll try again. Yes, so we have plenty of questions coming in from the audience, and I feel like Johannan's question from the Sun Movement is really fitting the conversation as it is going at the moment. And Johannan is asking, what are some incentives for young entrepreneurs to be more involved in food systems when there are so many mass migrations of young people looking for work, for money, and especially growth in urban centers? So addressing this movement that is happening from urban centers to the cities. So how can we encourage young people to get more involved in agriculture? Maybe one of the youth leaders would like to address this question. Pramisha, I feel like you're working with rural communities as well. What are your thoughts on this? Or somebody else has some thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I can come in.
Please, Dr. Kalibata.
Yes. So the whole thing around, I talked about it earlier, the idea of finding jobs in non-farm and urban areas of our environment, if I would say, of our communities is great. But like I said, it's not going to provide more than 50% of the jobs we are seeking. So in many of these farming landscapes, agriculture does provide a good opportunity and food systems do provide a good opportunity for engagement. I'll just give you an example. In Africa, of the food that is produced here in Africa, only 20% of that food is consumed on the farm. 80% of the food is consumed somewhere else. And it is being moved by SMEs. Most of those SMEs are owned by young people, all are employing young people. So that's one perspective. So the size of the job opportunity in there is grow even better. Again, we are importing so much more food that we are capable of producing. For example, in many of these places around the world, there are places to shorten supply chains and ensure that that young people have the ability to be employed in the very supply chains that are working in their environments. So some of these opportunities exist, but also like Brian said, there are opportunities for young people to engage in creating, in liberating or even introducing some of the things that have been missing or making the food system unrealistic and viable, as we might say. For example, he's working on solutions for smallholder farmers. Today, that solution is probably one of the most important things that we've learned with COVID. Communities that had the ability to be accessed through telephone systems, through SMEs, have had the biggest benefit compared to communities that didn't have that facility. And now that is something that is being put forward as one of the things that we must underscore. The opportunity for that to employ so many young people is huge. When it comes to how agriculture is done and how productive, for example, food systems are, one of the biggest holdbacks, for example, is how extension is done, which is mostly something that is an opportunity for young people and now is being created as a private sector engagement opportunity. So there are a number of opportunities for young people to engage, and we ensure that the jobs stay at home. But there's something else. We always look at young people can't go and start digging as we do in many of these communities, but there are other solutions. There's now, here in Kenya, you see young people that are driving what they call Uber for tractors as a way of reaching farmers. There's all sorts of solutions that are interesting and would be encouraging to young people. But also let's remember, food systems is not just about how we produce food. It's about how we move food. It's about how we process food. It's about how we redistribute food. Here in Rwanda, for example, you'll see that since COVID started, there's a network of very young people that are busy, they've created an app that allows them to buy food for communities, and they deliver food to your household. These are young people that have created the opportunity. So I do agree with Dr. Kanayo. The opportunities are here. The opportunities to engage are real, but we have to be able to be prepared to take them. I think what we need to do as young people is to highlight the critical challenges that are beyond our ability to solve. If you want to farm, for example, and you need a more predictable land policy, that's not something that is within your control. If you're already in business and you need better financing, that's probably something that you need structured in a way that suits what you're doing. And so several of those have to be addressed. But from a food systems perspective, I wanted to say the opportunity that I see in each of those tracks, we will be discussing game-changing ideas that can scale, that can go forward. My call to you all is, if you as young people, anywhere around the world, know any of those things that can employ young people at scale, let's put them on the table in each of these tracks and put them forward as opportunities that have capability to scale.
Let me jump back in here and invite Florence to maybe come in, because Florence, you are also based in Rwanda, and I know that you wondered about how we can make agriculture more attractive for youth. So I'd like you to comment on that. And I also, if you can, we just got a question from Sophie, who's a youth food and nutrition activist from Ireland, asking how food system and nutrition activists can work better with climate activists and make the topic of food system transformation more of a fighting and urgent topic that demands global attention from the public, but also from governments. So trying to kind of lead over from the focus on agriculture now kind of sort of towards nutrition and climate. And then I'd love for Lana to jump in after and maybe share her thoughts on those topics too. So Florence, if you can jump in.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kalibata and Dr. Kanayo, for highlighting those important opportunities that we are having as young people, so that we can have our big impact in terms of food transformation. As I was wondering myself how we can make like agriculture as an attractive job for young people. But what I learned from what Dr. Kalibata and Dr. Kanayo shared is that we young people have the big responsibility to take the lead. With the important opportunity you highlighted, especially in this upcoming UN Food Summit, we are going to have the big platform for young people, where we are going to be in some committees, but also to have an opportunity to raise our voices. So it's going to be our responsibility also to speak up for our young people, especially when it comes to integrating entrepreneurship and agriculture to young people. Yeah.
So Florence, on Sophie's question, how we can interlink some of the topics that fall in our food system. So she wondered especially about nutrition and climate change, how that interlinks and how those youth movements can work together to be stronger.
Yeah, thank you so much. When we talk about the climate change, let me start for nutrition. When we talk about nutrition, we don't point only on what we eat, but we also think about like the production, like that agriculture system where we have food security. When we start to have this climate change and there is instability in the climate in different parts of the world, that's where the production rate is going to be lower. And this is going to disturb the food security. And when it comes to nutrition, that's a very big problem, because there are a lot of people who are going to suffer from hunger because of food insecurity, because they don't have access to the food they want, because the production has been low due to that climate change program.
Lana, would you like to jump in as well?
Definitely. My background is actually in the international youth climate movement. I was one of the organizers for the first international climate strikes, and I don't think this is something that you can force, right? You can't tell a young person to make a global movement happen, because it depends on really galvanizing so many people around the world, and that is something that you cannot control. The most that we can really do is build up our own movement and our group of activists in food systems and nutrition, and keep pointing out those connections that exist between, for example, industrialized conventional agriculture contributing to more greenhouse gas emissions than the transportation industry, and pointing to the solutions that exist in healing the soil and in carbon sequestration, for example, and in supporting rural livelihoods, and keep pointing to those connections and reaching out to, I'm personally organizer within climate organizations, and I have led some efforts, for example, to join my youth climate organization to a coalition working on food systems issues, and slowly moving that ball forward. But I think that we also need a much larger group of young people making those connections and pointing at those connections, and actively reaching out to the climate movement as well, building our own movement, and then also making those connections. And I really do appreciate, especially Dr. Kalibata, for I think that's especially important, that we are actually able to have a seat at the table and not just be heard, but really be listened to and have our voices taken into consideration. And with that in mind, I actually do have a question for food systems experts in terms of listening to youth. It is that for several years that have been youth-led campaigns for climate-friendly food at climate conferences, especially those hosted by the United Nations, such as COP, the UN Climate Change Conference. And I was wondering if there are any plans for the 2021 UN Food Systems Summit to be plant-based or default plant-based, and if you personally believe that the summit should be, and so if you personally believe that climate conferences should be as well.
So is the question whether the Food Systems Summit should be plant-based?
Yes, and climate conferences as well.
Plant-based meaning there are no animals in the picture at all. What do you mean plant-based? Help me understand.
So plant-based or default plant-based would be really focusing on plant-sourced nutrition, so less meat and less dairy.
I think, Lana, you're referring to kind of how the summit is going to be held, right? The tangible, the conference, how that's going to be held and what the delegations will be eating. And
yeah, in terms of the catering, I've seen for many years movements, especially for COP, to have less meat-heavy catering. And I was wondering if the Food Systems Summit has any plans around this, and also if you have any personal beliefs in the actions that climate conferences should take, especially at the United Nations.
Good. No, I think that's a great question. But listen, I look at my role as not prescribing what people need to be doing. I look at my role as providing opportunities for people to come together and discuss where we need to go. Because where we need to go is not about me. It's about all of us and what we share together. We share a planet that is not going to be able to sustain our way of life as it stands today. We share a livelihood that we need to sustain in a good way. We share young people that don't have jobs. We share burdens as a result of nutrition. All those things that we share are very important to making sure that we find a common solution, a solution that we all believe in, not a solution that is good for Agnes or that is good for Lana. We have to find solutions that are suitable and implementable by the people that take them. So that's why we are going to have food systems dialogue at country level, so that we give everybody a chance to have a voice and to have a say. And that's why we're inviting the youth on the table, so that you can have a voice and a say in how you see things evolving and where you see things should go. So based on that, we should have a food systems summit that will define a better future for all of us. Again, to go to the point that Paul made, good food for all, planet and for people as well. So that's how I look at my role, and my personal beliefs do not count here.
Maybe to jump in again, because I find this really interesting, and I'd love to get Dr. Nwanze to jump in here, because I think one thing that is kind of holding us back a lot in debates around food systems are that they always have and always will involve trade-offs, right? So the trade-off that Lana just spoke about of plant-based versus, you know, the livelihoods of a lot of farmers who have livestock and the role of animals in some parts of the world. So I'd love for Dr. Nwanze to jump in and kind of share his views from CGIAR on this topic in particular.
Well, let me thank Agnes for the response that she gave. I think this is basically putting very clearly the whole objective of the Food System Summit. It's not Agnes pushing her own agenda or anybody's agenda. It's a platform that's going to give everybody an opportunity. And Lana, I think when she highlighted the 4 various opportunities that exist and talk about this, the food systems dialogue at country level. Now you talk about global, global presence, global movements. You got to start at the local level. You got to build up. I think you have the greatest opportunity. You're the lucky ones with digital technology, the digital revolution taking place in your generation. And you can do wonders with it. You can communicate, you can interlink, you can create networks, that eventually can bring about a global movement. But you got to start locally so that there's a buy-in from local communities. And I think here, what you think, plant-based summit, that's a great idea. How ideal is it? Let's be realistic. As I've said, again, I want to repeat that change does not happen by itself. It's got to be made to happen. And it's people that bring about change. So we need youth leadership and great conveners, amongst yourselves at all levels to be able to bring about this movement of youth that is going to transform our societies. Otherwise, your children will be talking about the same things we're talking about today. And they'll be asking you the same questions you're asking us. Anyway, I think Agnes's answer to this is great. Well, what does the CGIAR? The CGIAR focuses heavily on climate, on the climate crisis. For example, even for our young researchers, we have the Cliff Grants program that is run by the CGIAR Research Program on Climate Change, Agriculture, and Policy. It supports early career scientists from developing countries in Asia, Africa, Latin America, so that they can conduct research into climate change mitigation in agriculture. I think a point that I want to reemphasize is Agnes mentioned this again. When we talk about food systems, I use the terminology we've used in the past, the whole value chain. And the opportunities that, when I used to have conversations with youth, and they said, well, we cannot get into the agriculture because it's not attractive. I said, wait a minute. Do you know how many tons of fresh fruits are lost during the season? Whether it's papaya, whether it's oranges, whether it's mangoes, you name it. Simply because of what Agnes mentioned, transportation, bad roads, conservation. Has anybody thought about going into the agribusiness, agricultural business, just buying from local producers and storing them and conserving them for a few weeks? That's money. But anyway, we can go on this one. But I believe that the UNF's Food System Summit is going to be a great opportunity for youth to mobilize themselves so that their voices are heard. It is very important that your voices are heard during the run up to 2021, the summit itself, but also beyond it, so that it becomes a force to be reckoned with in future.
Thank you, Dr. Kanayo. I feel like this said...
One of the things that I didn't say, Barbara, is I didn't mention that there's a scientific group within the Food System Summit that is charged with generating the evidence of where we go, how we go forward. So part of me saying let's plant-based or whatever would actually be preempting the work that is being done from the scientific groups, that group of scientists that will provide us with a direction, will give us a direction and the evidence as to why we should take a certain direction and the benefits of that direction. I want to emphasize to the point you made that within that, there may be reasons for looking at incentives of a particular, as we go into this, the situation of where we talk about winners and losers may come in. And probably we may want to prevent losers by saying there are incentives to move to shift of whatever. These are the form of incentives for people to be in this as opposed to be in that. And those are things, those are basically public good areas that we can look at in terms of how we incentivize change of direction and stuff like that. But again, all that will be determined as we go into the details of the summit and as these groups start working.
Let me just jump in because we're coming to a close. I would love to, finally the debate is firing up a little bit, and I would love the youth delegates to have a chance to just briefly respond to what Dr. Kanayo and Dr. Kalibata have said. Lana, if you'd love to react to this, please feel free. And then we're going to slowly come to the round of last words.
All right, I can start us off. I want to go back to the point about a youth movement and say that both Pramisha and I are here from the Real Food Systems, and that is a group of inclusive youth that anyone can join, and we can start to build up the movement from there. And in terms of the discussion around plant-based and conferences, I think it's really important that when we have these platforms that we listen to youth, and especially when we have growing numbers of people supporting something, that we continue to, in the lead up to the summit, not only give places for youth to speak up, but really listen to their feedback. And I'll pass it on.
Great. Thank you, Lana. I think it is, I mean, this is really demonstrating sort of, you know, where youth come from, and where experts that are established and see great youth getting opportunities and taking them come from. But I think it's also true, as I've just seen on the chat, Carly Schneider just pointed out, that youth are incredibly strong and resilient. But in some processes, especially formal processes, especially on the global level, just like the UN Food System Summit, they may need some guidance too, because that is what intergenerational collaboration is about. That the older people with the experience guide the youth and benefit from youth's contribution. So I think there is this trade-off, but I think, as Dr. Kalibata said in the beginning, we have so much potential. It's just that the point is to speak and converse together and debate together to understand each other mutually. So let me move to the last round. There are so many questions.
But Barbara, can I insist that, Barbara, there's no trade-off. I want to be very clear about that. There's no trade-off. It's a win-win.
Situation, yes.
Yeah, so we are looking at it from that perspective. We are allowing older people to lead the summit, but we're asking younger people to be co-leaders in this summit, because we are interested in the infusion of knowledge from both sides. Young people have the ability to educate and teach older people too. There's a lot we can learn, and we are learning from young people, and vice versa. Older people also have learned a lot, have a lot of experience. So we cannot, it's not a one-way street. It's a two-way, and we need to see it as that opportunity. So we're trying to do the Food System Summit. We are trying to provide the opportunity for each of us to learn from each other and to be able to move forward together.
Thank you. That is a very, I'm very happy and very, moved to hear that. And I think all young people would be. So let me hand it over to the youth leaders once again. Just share your last thoughts. What I wanted to say earlier, we've had so many incredibly interesting questions coming in, and I am sincerely sorry that we weren't able to address them all, but the conversation will continue online. This webinar is actually streaming on Facebook, and we will also put it up on YouTube on the SDG2 Advocacy Hub YouTube channel. So feel free to go in there and comment and continue the conversation. Paul will, I'm sure he will point that out again at the very end. But before I hand back over to Paul, please share your last thoughts, youth leaders. It's been so much to talk about, and we could continue this conversation for a very long time, but maybe just highlight one thing that you've learned, or that was a highlight for you in this discussion. Jump in.
Yeah, can I jump in? Can you
Please,
hear?
Pramisha.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, SDG2 Advocacy Hub, Barbara and Paul, for awesome moderation, and thank you, my fellow amazing youth leaders and experts, Dr. Agnes and Dr. Kanayo, for your amazing explanations and productive discussions. And yeah, I also wanted to add the fact that COVID-19 has clearly exposed that our current food system is broken and it is not sustainable in any form. So I hope that the Food Systems Summit 2021 would be a great milestone and an opportunity to transform our current fragile and vulnerable food systems into resilient one. And as Lana had already said, and as also Eat Landscape report clearly shows that our current consumption pattern is not sustainable, as we are currently focusing on more animal-based diets. So it is imperative to show the exemplary leadership by promoting more plant-based diets. It doesn't mean promoting whole vegan diets in the conference, but showing the example by promoting plant-based diets to show that we are walking the talk actually. And the one thing that I want to highlight from this interactive panel discussion is that I was really inspired by Dr. Kanayo, that he asked us youth leaders to come out and to actually act and to act upon the solution, which would be also useful for our attendees today. And thank you for this amazing panel, and thank you SDG2 Advocacy Hub. Thank you very much.
Yeah, maybe I can come in on my part. It's really been amazing to hear the discussion and participate. And I really believe out of the conversation, some of the things that have come out really clear is the need for young people to identify opportunities and realize that the food systems go beyond the farm. There is an opportunity at every step of food production and food consumption. And most importantly, on my side, I will want to also highlight the role of digitization. I think COVID-19 has really brought the world online. And I believe that is an opportunity that we can jump into going into the Food System Summit next year. And I really believe that as young people, that will be one of the first steps that we can take to realizing the potential of food systems. Maybe to add something on that, I believe that it will be good to have infrastructure as part of the discussion in food systems, because when we talk about food production, we have to look at how much it travels, how it moves, how we can improve traceability and conscious consumption among the consumers. And I believe in that, things like broadband, it plays a very big role in digitizing the world and also ensuring that farmers and all the players come online to realize the potential of opportunities in the food systems. Thank you so much.
Can I jump in?
Dr. Kalibata, would you like to go, or Florence?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Florence, why don't you go first?
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you so much, SDG2 Advocacy Hub and Barbara, for organizing this good conversation. I love the going given by Dr. Kalibata and Dr. Kanayo, especially trying to highlight the opportunities that we are having as we young people in this field of agriculture and our important note that we can play in food transformation. On my side, according to what they highlighted, I learned that in this upcoming UN Food System Summit, it's going to be our amazing opportunity, especially we young people, to learn on how we can link on the opportunities, especially based on what other panelists talked about with what COVID-19 brought this world into the digital world. I think it's going to be our opportunity also as young people to make sure that we are moving from traditional to modern with advanced technology. So I believe that in this upcoming UN Food System Summit, there will be a big discussion around the improved infrastructure, as Brian also highlighted, but also the improved technology, especially for those smallholder farmers from rural areas, because they invest a lot of energy, but if they can get the include the technology, I believe they can produce more. That can lead to a lot of different things.
Thank you. If I can just ask the rest of the speakers to be very brief so that we can wrap up on time.
Okay, then I'll come in then. Listen, I'm very excited that we had this meeting. I'm very excited that young people want to be part of this. Like Dr. Kanayo said, collectively, we are extremely powerful as young people. So I hope that our voice, we can we can bring our voice forward as young people and understand its power. But individually, we are very effective. If we can do both and ensure that young people are effective in ensuring that this summit gets to deliver the expectation of us all, but also collectively we use our voice to help the summit deliver our expectations, that is going to be the best that anybody can hope for. So I encourage you to participate. I encourage you to be part of what we are doing, and I look forward to working with you in the Food Systems Summit.
Thank you. I guess now it's my turn. Let me see if I can take 30 seconds. Thank you all so much for this very, very exciting and fascinating conversation we've had today. My last message is, please, for our youth leaders, continue to grow your network. Let your voices be heard and insist that you are listened to. Because as I said, the decisions we take today are going to be the decisions that you will have to live with.
Yeah.
And I do hope, as Dr. Agnes has said, there are going to be great opportunities for you to be part of the System Summit. Please grab the opportunity. And thank you once more for this opportunity to be with you.
Thank you, Dr. Nwanze. Last words, Lana.
Thank you all so much for joining us. It was great to meet some other young activists and also to speak with Dr. Kanayo and Dr. Kalibata. And I hope that you will continue supporting young in your positions and listening to and taking into consideration the voices and the demands of young people through your positions and the work that you continue to do, especially with the 2021 UN Food Systems Summit. Thank you all so much, and thank you for this conversation.
Thank you. So I'll just very briefly hand over to Paul now for a wrap and a call to action. Thank you.
Thank you to all of you. This has been a really great conversation, and I'm actually quite sad that we've come to time. It's so exciting to see a discussion of different contributions. I think what we've established is there is an opportunity to participate. The invitation is there. You are all involved in different ways. We don't have one answer, but we also need to move forward. The challenge that we are facing is very immense, from empowering farmers with the right tools and technology to ensuring sufficient delicious food is available for all, that's healthy for people and planet. The driving the solutions is going to be super critical, and including young people in all areas of our food system across value chains to share their insights, to mobilize communities, but most importantly, to turn words into actions. And I think this is really critical. What I would say is that it's very easy for us to get into both ends of a discussion and forget that sometimes it's the middle where the answers are. And so I think it's really great to see this debate and this discussion, but to also look at the fact that we need lots of solutions. We need to have consistent positions and engagement and dialogue, and we need to be leaning in and build strong relationships to do that from, where we're looking to kind of really bring a solution forward that drives action. And know that that solution may be different in different parts of the world, from the city to the rural area, from different parts of the area. Some parts may need to, and you know, when we even talked about plant-based, there's some parts of the world that eat way too much animal-based protein, more than their share. Other people eat nowhere near enough, and they need a little bit just to be able to get those nutrients. And so we need to find the balance in all these things. And that's just one issue of so many that we have to talk about. Access to broadband, access to digital, COVID, the connection between healthy solutions and food and nutrition, as well as agriculture. So all of this is really critical, lots of debate, but we have a year or so until the Food Systems Summit, and this is when the work starts. The invitation is there, the platform is there. It doesn't have one particular answer or one particular agenda, but an open platform for dialogue and solutions. And so it's great to have you all here. Go online, follow the UN Food Systems Summit, follow there. I saw CFS was there. There's other players, CGIAR, Real Food Systems, Sun, there's the SDG advocates, all of these groups coming together to provide solutions. And so we want you to continue the dialogue. If you know people that didn't hear this discussion that you think will benefit from it, please share it with them. And we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day wherever you are.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Dr. Kanayo.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank